Hello, we are back with the fanfiction project. Daenerys 1 went really well. The submissions were fantastic, the editing made them sound like ice and fire. I was very happy with the result. Now, some have expressed interest in creating fan art for Daenerys 1, and I think this is a great idea. If we get enough scenes, we can re-upload with visuals. Video Books, who I've linked below, has done this with existing art. So if you do have fan art for Daenerys 1, send me an email or post it to the Sweetrobin Reddit. I'm sure lots of people, including me, would love to see it. But on to the next chapter. If you want to be surprised, you may want to click away, as we are in heavy spoiler territory. So for the next chapter, we will be tackling Areo Hotah. Again, we're looking for something between 4,000 and 7,000 words in George R. R. Martin's style of beginning in the middle of the action, flashing back, ending on a cliffhanger, with fantasy-like language that's somewhat old-timey but not too old-timey. And let's aim for April 30th with the submissions. So the first Areo Hotah chapter of The Winds of Winter is going to be called The Prince's Justice, and it's a bit more open on how the story will go compared to the Daenerys chapter. But for the most part, it's a travel story, much like the Arianne sample chapters or the Tyrion A Dance with Dragons chapters. Now remember that Areo Hotah is a man of few words, but he's also a man of great observation, so we need plenty of description of what's around him. The colors, the smells, the sounds. Hotah sees the beauty of the world, and he also notices very subtle things that are off, though he does not dwell too much on why they are off. A tiny bit, but that's it. Hotah does little in terms of conscious, rational analysis, but he does have incredible intuition. His gut tells him things before his mind. For example, back in the Captain of the Guard chapter, he knew he was going to kill Aerys Oakheart. So he knew something was off about the entire situation. Perhaps it was from eavesdropping on Doran or watching Arianne, but he figured out where everything was leading to. But he doesn't dwell on what exactly tipped him off. The single most important thing to remember about Areo is that his mantra is going to eventually be proven wrong. Serve, protect, obey, simple vows for simple men, is not true. Serve, protect, obey is anything but simple, and Areo himself is anything but simple. So the chapter should probably start out at Hellholt, move towards Sandstone, and end somewhere between Sandstone and High Hermitage. The conflict with Darkstar would probably be in the second Areo chapter, but if you really feel like writing about Darkstar, you can try it out. Of course, paralleled in this physical journey is Areo Hotah's moral journey. This is a tale about morality and a person's code and where it derives from. Remember, Areo Hotah's journey to bring justice to Darkstar is very much a parallel to Beric Dondarrion's men seeking justice for the Mountain. Beric's men become the Brotherhood Without Banners, a group seeking moral direction. And of course, it also parallels Bran going to the Three-Eyed Crow. They are heading to a hermitage, that is, the home of a hermit. Now, cards on the table here with the greater Dornish story. Myrcella and Rosamund have been swapped, with the real Myrcella actually being missing. That was Rosamund in the desert with the Queenmaker chapter. Additionally, Darkstar is innocent. Teray was the real culprit of the slash in the desert, and he is the informant for Doran. But this is not necessarily revealed in this chapter, though we want hints of the truth. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch my Vow for Myrcella video and Deeper Dorn Part 2, which I've linked below. So, I see the story picking up with the party arriving at Hellholt. The party is Areo, Obara Sand, Balon Swan, and a number of men-at-arms. Obara leads the party, which is significant. Obara is grossly ill-suited for command, as she is angry, vengeful, and unstable. And yet Areo must follow her orders. We can have Areo briefly wonder what Doran was thinking putting her in command. This is much like Bran following Cold Hands, a monster, because he was directed to. Balon Swan will have his Lannister men with him. He is specifically said in the Watcher chapter to have 3 knights, 8 squires, and 20 men-at-arms. Of the squires, one can have Moros, Jothos, and Danos Slint among them. Of the knights, Timon of Scrapeswood. These characters vanished from our story back in A Storm of Swords, so it would be nice to have them pop up again. However, Balon Swan and the Lannisters are vastly outnumbered by the Dornish men-at-arms. If you'd like to add other Dornish knights along, you are free to. I think Desiel Dalt, the Knight of Lemonwood, might be a very interesting character to have along, as he can tell us backstory on Dre. Desiel, for example, may use a spare dagger after losing his sword in a sparring match or something like that, hinting at how Dre cut the girl in the desert after dropping his sword. Incidentally, Alaria Sand and Loreza Sand should be traveling to Hellholt behind this party, so they won't be with Areo. Timing-wise, we know that Areo, Obara, and Balon left before Alaria, as Arion thinks that Obara might already be at High Hermitage at the beginning of her sample chapter. The story will eventually pass by both Hellholt and Sandstone, so there's plenty of time for history and world building here. Mentioning Rhaenys and Meraxes at Hellholt to some degree is a must. At Hellholt, we should meet Lord Harmon and his brother Ulwick Uller, if they were not already traveling with the party. They could have been. Apparently the Ullers are rather crazy and vengeful, and Ariane thought they would support her with her queen-making adventures. But other than that, we don't know much about them, so there's a lot you can explore. Is Ulwick the heir? Do any of them have true-born children? We don't know, so add whatever characters you like. You can also explore how they feel about Alaria, and perhaps go into her Lyseni love goddess if you like. At this point in our story, we are unsure if Alaria will head the route she did in the show. She seems to be against war, but she did send a spy, Elia Sand, with Ariane. At Sandstone, we should meet Lord Quentin Corgyle and his sons, Gillian and Aaron. We can explore what Oberyn was like during his fostering there, and perhaps even mention Lord Commander Corgyle of the Night's Watch. But this is all window dressing. The heart of the story essentially begins with Balon Swan being interested in the Norvashi fighting style and wanting to spar with Areo each evening, much like Jaime and Ilyn Payne did. And so we want a big exploration of both Balon and Areo's backstories. We want story time, like Brienne and Nimble Dick, and in these stories, what it means to be honorable, and which takes precedence, obedience or protection. Balon Swan should come off as the paragon of virtue, a perfect knight, modest, brave, and caring mostly about the protection of the innocent. Also, a sympathetic backstory for Balon would be nice. The safety and protection of Myrcella Baratheon is now his greatest concern, feeling he failed her brother. Of course, Areo will still remember Balon sweating at Sunspear, thus perhaps thinking that Balon is a liar. If you remember, the sweating back in Sunspear makes it look like Balon was part of a plan to kill Trystane, but he also ate spicy stew, which Areo forgets seeing. And the Trystane plot is a lie from Doran, but Areo Hotah doesn't know this. Now, on top of this morality discussion, it's also important that Balon be asking probing questions about Myrcella and the death of Aerys Oakheart. I imagine Balon is not a complete idiot. He likely grew suspicious when the houses delayed his arrival at Sunspear, and he likely suspects Myrcella is not Myrcella, as he lived at court with her and was there to see Myrcella off. Perhaps he caught a glimpse of Rosamund that day as well. Let's keep in mind that Balon is also a watcher, like Areo. Now, some may note that Balon sent a message to King's Landing saying that he encountered Myrcella, but let's also remember that Balon would not likely trust the Maester and Dorne with messages. Also, Balon likely knows that something is off about Sir Aerys' death. Balon can wonder how it came to be that Aerys Oakheart and Myrcella even encountered Darkstar. Balon also likely collected Aerys' cloaks and saw that his silk cloak was missing. That is, his ceremonial cloak. Also, there is the question of where the hell Septa Eglantine, Rosamund, and the loyal Lannister guards went. Balon definitely needs to be sleuthing and trying to figure out what actually went down. Balon is not likely to reveal to Areo all he knows, but his questions should show that he's figured out a fair bit, or at minimum, that something shady is going on. Now, with any dialogue that happens in this chapter, background on Darkstar and House Dane is of course welcome. What he wants, his motives, the House's Dane's relationship with the Martells and why it isn't necessarily great, political stuff, Stony versus Sandy versus Salty Dornish, water rights, women's inheritance, anything you like. There's also plenty of room for other stuff, perhaps Areo's religion, Norvos, how visiting Croyane affected Doran, anytime Areo remembers Doran acting weird, perhaps him whispering Sorella or something. Whatever fits, remember that Areo is a show not tell character. When he thinks about something, he visualizes it. He doesn't just think about it. Even when he speaks of the past, it's visual. I remember, echoed Areo Hotah in his deep voice. The bears danced and the bells rang, and the prince wore red and gold and orange. My lady asked me who it was who shone so bright. I mean, Hotah is a werewood essentially. He watches, he remembers, blood is spilled at his feet. Now, here's the major conflict of the chapter. Obara Sand approaches Areo to tell him that she plans on killing Balon Swan in the desert after Balon sends off his last raven at Sandstone as vengeance for the supposed Trystane scheme. She figures the best time to kill Balon is after he's exhausted from his sparring with Areo. After Balon dies, she knows the other Lannister men will be a problem, so she's ordered her men to attack them as they sleep. Later, they can blame the deaths on an ambush from Darkstar. This gives Areo pause as he's grown to like Balon and notes that the squires are mere boys, but is obedient as Obara was given command of the mission. At Sandstone, there will be a feast. We need someone to offer Balon spicy stew and have him politely refuse, with him mentioning that he tried the dish in Sunspear and it was far too spicy for him. Areo will remember that he did in fact see Balon eat the spicy stew. The crew will leave Sandstone and head towards High Hermitage. One night after sparring in the desert, Obara will approach the men and attack Balon. Balon will do a respectable job in defending himself, but due to exhaustion after sparring, he will clearly be losing. Obara will turn her back to Areo, and Areo will grip his axe and do nothing. Areo will realize that this confrontation between Obara and Balon was exactly what Doran wanted. The chapter will end with Obara killing Balon's swan, and Areo hearing the sounds of battle in camp as the Lannister men are slaughtered by the Dornish. And so that's the outline: sparring, talking, and a murder. If you have other ideas, please include them. Nothing is written in stone with this outline. Daenerys 1 deviated from its original outline in places quite a bit. Anyway, I look forward to your submissions. Thanks for everything.